All right, what's up? It's podcast time. We're here with the True Crime Podcast by Jason Guadarrama. Might be asking, this is a group project. Why the hell is there only one individual? Honestly, I'm gonna take the blame on that one. Completely my fault. Um, Family issues have stopped me from going to a good chunk of the classes towards the end of the semester, which is unfortunate. And when everyone chose their groups, I wasn't there. And then so by the time I showed up, everyone chose in their groups, and yeah, uh, sent an email on Canvas, didn't hear back. So I was like, you know what? I'm a lot of things. A bum, however, is not one of them. So even if I get a zero, by damn it, we're gonna do this podcast. So let's jump into it. What crime are we talking about today? Well, that would be the Chandler Halderson case, which happened in 20. The murders happened in 2021, but I think it went to trial in 2022. These are the main characters for the most part. Far left, Chandler himself. Look at that man. In the middle, his parents, Brett and Krista Halderson. Rest in peace. And then on the far right, his girlfriend, Catherine, who went by Kat. These are the main players in the entire scheme we're going to talk about today. So, and they live in Wisconsin for what that matters. Because I mean the log cabin gets brought up in a little bit. So just that. First things first, bit of backstory on Chandler. He is pretty much living the life. Like looking at him, he is 22 years old, still live with his parents, but he's on the up and up. He graduated from his college's engineering program. With that, he landed a job at SpaceX in Florida. So he was getting ready to move to Florida and start his whole life over there. Obviously, SpaceX, probably a really nice paying job for an engineer. So they're like, damn, this guy's already winning. But he gets even better. While in college, he was working at a insurance company where all the work was online, and he made actually like decent money. It was like 60K a year, I think. Um, he claimed, which may not sound like a lot in general, but remember being a broke 20-year-old college student doing engineering classes, having the ability to do remote work and making that amount of money, crazy, especially when you're living with your parents. You could just stack up so much dough like that. Bro was living. And on top of that, he had, like I said, his girlfriend at the time, Catherine, aka Kat. Incredibly loyal. In fact, Chandler, let's go back, let's look at this man. That man on the far left, he cheated. He was unfaithful. And she still took him back. Now, you might be asking, why are we bringing this up? A, to make you I mean, he's already a murderer, but to make you dislike him even more. But secondly, that actually will come in later. One of the requirements for Kat to take him back was that he always had to share his location with her. Will be very important. So, looking at the surface, this guy looks like he's got it. In reality, he is not living the life at all. He graduated from the engineering program, but for some reason the school was really slacking on getting him his like certificate of completion or whatnot, like essentially the credentials he needed to fully move over to Florida and start his job. So that's an issue because it's delaying his travel, uh, which means his future job's in jeopardy because he's not moving over there because he doesn't have a certificate. No money. You're like, what the heck? That year's making good money at this job. Well, due to some issues with the bank and the company he was working at, he wasn't receiving any of his checks. Like he had like a backlog of just hella paychecks that weren't being cashed in because it wasn't going to him. So now he has money issues, and on top of that, he's severely injured. What I mean by that is he's pretty much like the guy from SpongeBob on the right. He had fell down a staircase, hurt his neck, went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "Yeah, you've severely damaged your neck, and for the foreseeable future, you can't go on any flights." Keep in mind they live in Wisconsin, so everything that was good about his life is kind of falling apart right now. His job, he can't like go to it because he can't fly because of his injury, but also the school's not like giving him his certificate for the engineering program that he completed. He has no money due to some issues with the job in the banks, right? On the bright side, still got that girlfriend, so he is still winning by some accounts. However, that's where we get into the meat and the bones of this. The lies, aka everything. This man had zero truthful bones in his body. If he was Pinocchio, his nose would be exiting the freaking stratosphere at this point. What do I mean by the lies? Well, his father, Brett Halderson, saw his son in that situation, was like, I'm gonna help my boy out. So he went up to Chandler and pretty much asked, like, who can I get into contact with, your work and your school to help resolve these issues so we can get you back on track. Chandler was like, here you go, here's some emails for like the staff from school or like, the HR at work, so you can help me like figure all these issues out. Well, funnily enough, this is gonna sound crazy, but if we go back to everything here was a lie. He never went to school. He was completely unenrolled in college. Never actually got the engineering degree. That job at SpaceX, completely. He lied about that too. He didn't have that because, like I said, he never even went to college. That job at the insurance company where he was making decent money was also a lie. All he did was play video games all day. He'd be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go inside my room and do my remote work." Nah, he just played video games. So he didn't have a job. Still had that girlfriend though for now. So the lies, literally everything. And then so the dad kind of was suspect by like all these things going on. So he went to the school directly and was like, "Hey, my son graduated. We need this answer certificate." And the school was like, "Nah, like he never even went here." And so he's like, "What?" And then so he ended up finally scheduling a meeting between the school, Chandler, and himself. And you're like, Jason, how'd that take so long? Like, didn't Chandler give him these emails to message? Well, all those emails were fake. Chandler faked like hundreds of emails pretending to be people. Because, like I said, he didn't go to school. So the emails that he gave his dad were emails he created to fake being school faculty. Same with his job. He didn't actually have a job. He was unemployed. So he faked having he faked everyone. All those emails were fake, and it took his dad going in person to college, to the actual school, to where the staff was like, "Nah, he doesn't go here." So now his entire life's crumbling apart because he's passed for a few years of being like he's been a complete bum, but now everything's falling apart. So the average person would accept that they've been lying for years, probably apologize profusely, get a job, actually go to college, and try to get their life on track. Not Chandler. This is where we come to the timeline. July 1st is when the meeting was supposed to happen. Instead of going to the meeting, Chandler got his gun, shot his dad in the back, waited for his mom to get home. When his mom came home, he ambushed his mom, shot her too, killing both of his parents. Reasonable reaction. Um, no, that's actually awful. I shouldn't even do it. That's completely awful. Anyway, so the murders happened on the 1st because that was the day that his parents and him were supposed to go to school, and if he went to the school, all his lives would come, crashing down. His life would be ruined. So, in order to preserve his lives, he killed his parents and took their life. So he preserved lives by taking life. Awful. And after the murder, that was on the 1st. The 2nd, the family obviously doesn't go to work. Some of their coworkers are confused, like, why did they just skip? So one of Krista's coworkers shows up at the house and was like, "Yo, Chandler, where's your parents?" And Chandler's like, "Oh, they went on a vacation to the log cabin that they have." And everyone who was friends with the family, including their neighbors, thought it was weird. Like, why would they take an impromptu vacation without telling anyone? Very sus. We come to the 3rd. So between the murders and the 3rd, Chandler dismembered both of his parents, like completely cut up their bodies. In fact, they had a fireplace in the house, and so when he cut up some of the bodies, he put some like the body parts in the fireplace, trying to cremate them. The issue was the moisture from like the bodies and the fire created a lot of steam, and he had closed the fireplace. There was like a glass door around the fireplace that he had closed, and the steam builds up, literally caused an explosion in the fireplace, which broke all the glass surrounding it and actually um, injured Chandler because he was at the time sitting on the couch next to the fireplace, I guess just watching his parents be cremated. And when the explosion happened, like glass hit him and it ended up cutting his foot and everything. And there was obviously, blood and body parts everywhere. It's the horrifying sight. Anyway, so he's doing that after the murder, and then on the 2nd. And on the 3rd, he drives off to some woods to dump off some of the body parts. The 4th, don't know what happens. We'll get to what happens later. And then on the 5th, he dumps more evidence. Where would he dump this evidence, though? So, like I said, he had a girlfriend. The girlfriend's mom owned a farm with a ton of land. He literally just showed up to the girlfriend's mom's place and was like, "Yo, can I borrow your swimming pool? Like, I want to go swimming." The mom was like, "You know, you're dating my daughter. Cool." Chandler never even got in the pool. He just walked around the property, which the mother thought was incredibly weird. Like, this kid asked to use my pool, but he's just walking around, this big ass farm. Well, what Chandler actually was doing was hiding, the gun he used, the axe he used to dismember them, saws, and body parts on this unknowing woman's backyard. You might ask, oh, did the girlfriend know? The girlfriend also didn't know about any of this. She didn't know about the murders. She didn't know about the lying. She thought he had all this stuff going on too. So Chandler literally lied to everyone. Crazy. We get to the 6th. He was quiet on the 6th. The 7th, he finally reports the missing, which is kind of crazy because imagine being your son, your parents disappear on this impromptu vacation. No one's hearing from them, and it takes nearly a week for you to file them as missing. Yeah, completely sus. At this point, the police were incredibly suspect of Chandler because the police had gotten video recordings of like the ring doorbells of the neighbors, and they realized that the parents got home and then just never left. So they went on this vacation, but security videos show that the parents never even left the house. So where the hell did they go? Well, and it took all the way into the 8th for Chandler to be arrested because the police were hella suspicious of Chandler at this point, and so they were asking everyone like, "Well, what's going on?" And they eventually talked to Kat. Kat was like, "Oh yeah, he went to my mom's place." The police went to the mom's. The mom was like, "Yeah, he asked to use the pool, but didn't even go in the pool. That's kind of sus." So the police were like, "Yo, can we search your property?" The mom was like, "Yeah." And then they found literally hundreds of bone fragments, bloodied, an axe, saws, just horrible, horrible things. And then he was arrested because at this point it's pretty obvious that it's him. Now I might be thinking, Jason, you mentioned earlier that the girlfriend, had his location. What does that have to do with anything? Well, he hid some of the body parts at his girlfriend's mom's farm. He hid the rest of the body parts just in random woods. They're in Wisconsin. There's woods everywhere. He just hid them randomly, and the police were able to find some of the body parts because he shared his location on Snapchat with her. So when she like turned over her phone, Snapchat had saved his location in certain parts of the forest, and so when the police went there, they found stuff. Um, I would not recommend searching the crime scene photos for this case. I don't know why I did that. When I searched up the crime scene photos, I was like just expecting like the blood splatters like on floors, and maybe I can include this in this presentation because that's not that gory. But then I saw a torso with no head, no arms, and no legs attached, and it was absolutely horrifying. So do not search up the crime scene photos for this case. And unfortunately, not all the body parts were recovered, only some. Uh, so throughout Wisconsin, there are just probably some bones at this point, just scattered throughout the forests because some kid killed his parents over lies. Now, that's the timeline. That's what happened. Chandler has a little bit of a different timeline. What does that mean? Let's get into it. Chandler's timeline: July 1st, kill parents. July 8th, get arrested. During that entire time, every single night, bro was playing video games. I can't stress how fucking crazy. I'm sorry for the. I'm already this deep in. We're not. We're adults. We're just gonna pretend that didn't happen. Yeah, every single night he played video games. He killed his parents, dismembered them, played video games. The next day, further dismembered them, tried to burn them, played video games. Every single day. For hours and hours and hours. Bro was just hopping on the game. And I can't, like that. You know how insane that is to murder your own parents, dismember them, fail to cremate them, and then just after a hard day of that, you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna relax and play some video games on my computer by myself. It is absolutely horrifying how humans can be like this. That is genuinely just insane. And as the days went on and the police got more and more suspicious and his lies, were falling apart and he was getting closer to being arrested, all he did was just lock himself in his room and play video games. His last week of freedom, he didn't go anywhere. He didn't do anything. He just handled body parts and played on his computer. It is the most insane and sickening stuff I can imagine. Ugh. Anyway, so Canvas is currently down. so I can't look at the assignment. But if I remember correctly, I also had to talk about a criminal theory and how it applies. It also said this was 5 minutes, but I feel like 5 minutes is not a lot of time. But like I said, I'm probably gonna get a zero on this anyway because it wasn't a group effort. So you break one rule, might as well break all the rules. I would say, well, yeah, the theory that I want to talk about was bounded rationality. It's a kind of it came from a criticism of rational choice theory, which says, rational choice theory says the criminals are all rational. Bounded rationality was like, yeah, they're rational, but not perfectly rational. They make shortcuts, and they're not perfect. With humans can't think of every single scenario, every single outcome, and then properly weigh that. So instead, the brains make shortcuts, and the first option that looks good is the option people go with. So yes, criminals are rational. However, the rationality is very imperfect, and that's why they make mistakes, and why they make biased decision making, so on and so forth. I think this applies here because, like I said, he killed his parents on the first, the day that they were supposed to meet with the school. He probably thought, okay, how can I preserve my lies? Like, how can I preserve my way of life? And he was like, well, if I kill my parents, I preserve my lies. And if he was perfectly rational, he'd be like, yeah, I do that, then I get caught by the police and I spend the rest of my life in jail, which is no life at all. Which is, therefore, it's a dumb choice. Obviously, he's not rational. He didn't think of that. He just thought, how do I preserve my life? Kill my parents. That was the first option that he thought of that would preserve his life. And because he's not perfectly rational, he didn't think of, a week down the line where you get arrested. So, here we go. Talked about bounded rationality. It's a way better fit than perfect rationality because cases like this literally show that criminals are not perfectly rational because in no circumstances is killing both your parents, dismembering them, cremating them, and then burying them throughout the Wisconsin woods a correct response to them finding out that you lied about having a job and going to school. I'm sure plenty of people lie about shit like this and they don't kill their parents. So not rational at all. However, irrational, yes. Did it make sense in his mind? Probably. Is he absolutely psychotic? Yes. So, with that, this is the end. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day. Have a good summer. Later.